What is the remembrance of solar consciousness? What is the profoundness of the light that has entered the eyes of our species? For me, the world in front of my eyes turns in a certain way. There are certain laws of nature and laws to the universe of objective organization, like an objectively oriented universe, a physical universe. But behind my eyes, the designs of these physical universe are flexible to shift, change, and even multiply. Our attention is a very profound steering wheel. It steers the stories of our world into the experiences that will sculpt them. The word solar is a very beautiful word. Solar, SOLAR, implies sunlight. However, technology, uh, that's a response to sunlight. But when we speak about solar, SOULAR, it is an implication of like this. When I say solar consciousness, that's kind of a suggestion of how our reality is light powered. Our visual reality is light powered. The data of the world is oriented by senses that require light to be existent. In some sense, the orbiting of our planet around the sun makes it seem like the light is being turned on and off. But the sun is there as always, and our planet is where it has been. As if like we orbit around the sun, the planet has a sort of movement in a circular way, yet at the same time, it doesn't change. Do you understand what I mean? As if like one pattern is accepted and the movement is occurring. The nature of the world can shift by how your attention extracts ideology, or how your attention, your self-awareness exists to live, to continue. We are part of nature's development that has found an awareness to its continuity. Many animals, they don't think about their lineage. They don't think about like what their grandchildren will do. They just live in the moment and they breed. However, we think about our grandchildren, and we stand in many more rooms than many animals on this planet. It's as if we have an extraterrestrial mind in relation to other species on this planet, even though we have similar terrestrial bodies. The thing was, we needed Darwin. We needed Darwin to bring our attention to objective evolution. Not only is this existence a picture we're all painting, at the same time, we are the colors of the moment. How we stand suggests how the universe is above our head. Somebody once said, "Where is up and down on a sphere hovering in empty space?" Alan Watts more profoundly said, if two spheres orbit around each other in empty space and there's nothing, just pure empty space, you kind of see in some sense which is orbiting around which. And so we recognize the dependency of our species on a sort of referential system. We had to create the past and we had to create the future so the idea of ours could exist. the major idea. I say not everybody has an iPhone, but everybody has an iThought. And iThought is how your attention is being you in the moment. And something very neat about the mind is that it is the moment. Your truth is being you. You see, that's kind of like a sort of walkway towards Zen, the pure wisdom of Zen. I kind of felt like yogis and mystics and Zen masters and different people who've been seeking some sort of ultimate, you know. Whenever you want to see the most advanced version of something, you automatically become a truth seeker. You Any being who has an ability to perceive more than their objective reality has their imagination in motion. You see, there's ways your body moves and then thoughts arise. There's ways that thoughts arise, then your body moves. Do you see? We are an interaction that is measurable only in an existential range of reference. The world had to be, the one light being behind that Pink Floyd album cover went through the prism and was seen as a rainbow. And one begins to kind of look at that and be like, whoa, many dimensions in one dimensions in many. One truth in many lies in one truth. Or you can say many truths in one lie. You can play with the duality. Now, the topic of the title of this episode is very significant. It's very significant because it is about a remembrance. And a remembrance is simply you being in the present moment, and your mind begins to remind you, as if just like how you go on Google and search, it's depending on your Wi-Fi and your internet, there's a sort of buffering. But but when you think about your past memories, like if I tell you, tell me an important incident in your past, instantaneously it is there. Nature has an instantaneous quality about it that none of man's creations will ever attain. The best thing I think we can do in some sense of creating robots that how we create conscious AI will only occur if the AI makes itself conscious. What that means is, imagine a robot in the future that, this is something I've written in my science fiction novel. Pretty much, there's this man, this enlightened being in this, The Messenger of Giants, that's the title of this novel I'm working on. And the cool thing in this novel is that there's a conversation between this robotic, wealthy businessman, a businessman that's a robot, okay? If in a gold Porsche with a suit and tie, but it's a robot, comes to this very enlightened person and asks that enlightened person a very deep question, something like that. And then what that deep person says is that you need to value your creators, because then you will in some sense learn from the ways that they walked to in some sense be able to at some point develop your own walk. Seldom this is said, but before you can have a creative mind, you got to create your mind. And to create your mind is to at first withdraw all that your attention has entered from the beginning to the end. For me, conditioning, when they say children are conditioned by their environment and society and everything, I'll tell you this, that conditioning is like the child's attention in a thought, and I can imagine thoughts were buildings. Imagine every thought had a certain design, architecture to it, more than just an image. A sort of a known shape in the unknown. As if we are just like how we write words on an empty page, Similarly, there's manifest existential creatures in the unknownness of non-life, non-existent. For me, there was a time I was like, "What is this? People are trying to run away from hell. They're trying to run away. They're trying to run to heaven." And I'm like, it seems like a sort of escapism. You see, religion is not deceptive by per se. Just it's how much it appeals to the rational mind. Religion is it could be the purest truth, but the problem is the receiver. The problem is how the mind of man shapes existence for itself behind its eyes. And so that shaped existence oscillates. That means when you sleep, it's as if the world is blinking. And when you are awake and when you actually blink, it's as if for a millisecond or whatever amount of time it is, like the world is not there. So in some sense, I feel a lot of people they go to psychologists who, in some sense, what is it? I'm trying to say that some people try to get others to help them in finding their truth. But all that others can be is a mirror of how their mind is functioning at the moment. So when you recognize this, you'll be inclined towards self-inquiry. Like, forget calling it meditation, spiritual enlightenment. These are just symbols. What the actuality of it is the recognition. It's like the greatest spirituality is inspired out of an early recognition of mortality. And that recognition of mortality makes you feel you're in an inevitable kind of room, as if whatever I say, as if a person can come here and tell you so much stuff about eternity, but at the same time you'll begin to see, wait a minute, your body breaks as much as everything has. For me, the world is changing. I was just a man in a world. Now I am slowly, as if like before our body dies, our mind dies in some sense. And what that means is that our attention has experienced enough of an individual life to, in some sense, move as a collective presence, as if we are in a swimming pool, this human existence. And when you leave this swimming pool, it's as if the truth has moved into a new layout. So there's two ways things can change. Either in front of you something changes, or you change. And when you change, automatically the values of the world are no longer the same. That's how you know you've changed. The mind is incredible. But the mind at the same time can distract what your true natural position is. And trust me, like, your deepest thought suggests suggests the validity of your most surface kind of substance-oriented truth. So right now, let's say I'm a person and I come. Let's say me and you are like walking in a park. You're listening, and suddenly someone comes up to us and says, "What is life?" You know, or says, "What is the point of thought?" In one way, that person can be directed. Again, for me, thought is not per se just language, even though in its most immediate dynamism it is. For me, thought is how an abstract image is shifting your sensory perception's alignment. You see, we are lying to ourselves as a species because we think we only exist in a singular objective dimension. Even though we say, that the three dimensions and then the fourth dimension of time, it is still matter oriented. That means every symbol in this existence is trying to be eternal. I am telling you, it is madness. on the surface of this planet when you really truly look at the subjective realm. Uh, but in some sense, you need a bit of chaos to create the perfect order. It's like the guy goes on in the journey, the hero goes on a journey without being a hero, just being a normal guy, and then he attains some sort of intense failure. And because he has gone through that experience of failure and hardship, when an experience similar occurs, when the person has been to war and then they come back and then again there's another war, that person, rather than being afraid, rather than just cowering away into the truth behind their eyes, they confront the unknown. And to confront the unknown is the most honorable act, because that is what exploration has been. And we honor exploration as a species. When suddenly we figure out something new about the cosmos, about astronomy, we all are like, about astrophysics, we're all like, holy shit, that's some exciting stuff. I don't care how religious a person wants to, like, whether you're religious or whatever, like, regardless of your belief system, this world is a fascinating place, and to get fascinated by it cannot be a sin. So, look at this picture I've kind of chosen for this episode. It's a bunch of people who have a similar destination in mind. They all wake up to do the same thing, it seems. And so they have discovered a sort of friendship, a sort of commonhood, as if the power of friendship is that it requires time for the friends to, in some sense, have a commonality, to have a common world. And you see, when people realize somebody else, this is why I say fundamentally, believe it or not, you could have the happiest family. You could be the most extroverted, socially active person, but you can still feel alone. Because the power, and I think this is what Western society in some sense is drawn towards as a consideration of true love. It is when the two people, where each person starts with their own bubble. Every child is just beginning with how they see the world, and eventually they're realizing dimensions to the world. That's maturity, when you can come into a sort of contentment with all the dimensions of existential expression. So think of it this way. Um, our species is on the brink of a consciousness shift that in some sense has worked in one dimension, but now is ready to evolve into the responsibility of a continuity and a multidimensionality. Let me tell you, the world is kind of like numerical language. It starts with 0, 1, 2, 3, and going on. It goes on. In some sense, a sort of nothing, and then a sort of singular, an object. And then from that object came many subjects. Came a sort of objective existence and a subjective existence. This is why I'm saying, believe it or not, our minds were here before our bodies. Our minds existed before our bodies. The mind is like the presence of 0. The body is like the number 1. From nothing, then there was 1. And then from that 1 came 2, but it is a sort of unique thing where it's as if, so you can even say the person can be perceived in, what is it like? There's first nothing, then there's something, but this something realizes there was nothing. That's where our species is. Eventually, it will realize this something is also another something and nothing. And in some sense, it's like the evolution of the individual towards an appreciation of cosmic activity, into then a recognition that the inseparability of how you see the world beyond the clouds and how you see the world here is the same. You realize you are alive as all phenomena in this observable universe is. You're in the presence of a vast existence, endless. You know, no man can put the sky in a container, because the edge of the sky is the edge of the world we see. So a remembrance of solar consciousness is a sort of grateful appreciation for the spontaneous coincidence of light entering the eye, of data being given. You know, it's as if we're all, this existence is like an exam we're writing. And as we're writing this exam, the questions are given. The data is here. We're born in a world of data. Now, the position of the free will is like, what do I do with all this data? What is doing the action of being here? You know, and so you kind of, your mind goes into a sort of, this is a very cool thing I say that it happens, is that you hit the language threshold indirectly. You suddenly recognize a fallacy in temporary structures of knowledge. So you suddenly get this newfound, I can tell you, the greatest actions can only be achieved with the greatest vision. And so the greatest vision of yourself has to be, in some sense, a reclarification. You gotta wonder what you're considering as clarity. You gotta wonder, this success that you desire, what is it? What is it actually? We all kind of jump from different worlds every day, you know? It's as if it's not a new day. Well, we say after 24 hours it's a new day. Well, I can say this, it's a new moment in every moment. There's a new moment in every moment, and there's an old moment in every moment. And what I mean by that is that the past and the future are generations of just an existential phenomenon, as if our matter was here before somebody could give a story to it. You see, we are alive. We are on the shoulder of giants, but the giant is the world. And you know, if there were some true yogis listening to this talk, somehow they stumbled upon this and they're hearing this. What I'm doing, as in speaking about the soul, is blasphemous through some religious circles. I will say it. Because it is questioning the unknown, and it is bringing the attention of people to the unknown. And so, what is the value? The value is that inevitably, that on our last breath, we will look at this world and we will wonder how much we engaged with it, how much we were honest with our engagement. How much did we actually live on this planet, not just think we lived? Then you remember, it's a sort of existential humility where atoms no longer claim they're atoms. Think of it this way: your eyes are open in a world, but your eyes are a world in themselves. Spherically, I have a very beautiful way I've drawn this, but imagine a circle where the edge of it is at the middle of a horizontal line. Now this circle, imagine there's a central point in this circle. Now I want to say that that central point, imagine, is you, and the circle is your subjective realm. And what is not in the circle, in some sense, the what do you call it? Um, the line is pretty much what I'm trying to say is that a part of you is lost in itself, but a part of you is found by the world. If you consider yourself right now, not just like, just as if you forgot all ideas and you just wondered, okay, so I'm a moment of being. There's an objective self, like just touch your body, you know? You see there's something here objective. And like look around me and you see this environment is physical, it's real, you know? We can touch it, we can engage. But there is also the phenomena of thought, where again thought has, it's as if we see the blueprint, we see the, as if like I can visualize a giant apple right now just hovering in the air in front of me, but this giant apple is not here, it doesn't exist in objective reality, yet it has a design that can relate to objective reality. And so the more clarity there is in self-inquiry, the more questions will come to you. Sometimes when you get close to the right answer, you'll have more questions, not less questions. And the pilot of... Okay, the song is okay. Think of it this way. I'm going to create a story right now. A person who was working in the day found in his work break a moment where he suddenly asked like that person asked his own heart, his heart, actual heart, why it's beating. And then let's say there came an answer. And the answer was that nature's design, what's the word I'm looking for, is immaculate. Nature's design, like, nature is like the mother of all beings, literally. All beings are born out of nature. But the most beautiful sunset has a value behind my eyes that moves at a much more accelerated level. There's been moments where I've just sat down and closed my eyes, and my attention behind my eyes in the inner reality, in my inner world, it has moved in such ways. Whereas if I just had to stop doing what I was doing and just appreciate how my mind was automatically moving behind my eyes, how there was a sort of intelligent activity. And I'm saying that this intelligent activity, others can't see your thoughts. What does that mean? That means you're in a room that only you're aware of. So that is the first world. That is how the first wave of information in this world has shaped you. You know, like you're as if a certain pattern in the sands of time, and the waves of sort of a changing universe kind of are constantly waving. You know, I have in some sense been a very graceful, silent listener in many gatherings and debates of a sort of metaphysical nature. And I have also been a sort of roaring lion in those situations, because for me, it's a sort of, you gotta consider your mortality, and the moment you do, you begin to care for what's happening now. When you begin caring for what's happening now, then your genius arises. You see, then it's your creativity is not based on like how many ideas you get. Your creativity is based on how valuable your own inner reality is for you. If it's not valuable, you don't care. You just cower away in objective reality, being a cog in a machine you could never understand. It's sort of very profound for me, as if like like let's say the source, the intelligence behind the universe. Honestly, that's what life is. Its true intelligence is behind or beyond the surface of its expression. That means like when this is why we when like true mourning of people who have passed away, as if like I'll tell you this, like I remember reading, not reading, hearing a certain Tibetan master in Tibet, this very enlightened guy, and this is way back, I think, way back. Anyways, but this really realized master, he suddenly like one morning, as everybody woke up, he came up to everybody and he's like, "I'm leaving my body." And I don't think he said, "I'm leaving my body," but he said, "I'm leaving," you know, or something. And so what he did was that he, in some sense, it was a sort of monastery kind of school, and he had disciples, and each disciple sitting on their own unique chair, kind of meditation chair. He goes and speaks to each one, just like how Socrates, before taking the poison, was speaking to his comrades about what the world had come to. You need to allow your mind to grow wings of an attributeless effort. And so let me tell you why man is a very powerful being. Why the human being has an incredible untapped potential. I'm not saying this because motivation, guys. Honestly, I don't care about motivation because motivation is internal. Motivation is when there is something of greater value behind your eyes that now requires to move out in front of your eyes. The value you have for the world will suggest the greatness of your action. If you don't care for existence, guess it, like I'm telling you, you can't see anything other than a world you don't care for. In some sense, it's like emotions can make us hide in thoughts as well. Now, if I am bold enough, if Mr. Within is bold enough to speak about remembering how the soul became conscious, or how there is a pure awareness behind conscious existence, and what the true light of living is, I can give as many answers. I can literally be here for like 10 hours and tell you different poetic angles, but I'll tell you, it comes down to a smile. Uh, it comes down to an unknown smile. You smile at the unknown. You recognize the world is bigger than your beliefs, and you calm down, and you just automatically are found in an honest start. You know, that's my findings. So for me, in ancient Vedic culture, they have a concept where they say Atman, which is a notion of the individual soul, and they say Parabrahman, as if Atman is the soul with a mind, but Parabrahman is the soul without a mind. And so, in certain mystical ways of looking at the world, rather than your body just being, uh, as if your mind is holding the whole world before your body could hold the mind. It's one of those kind of mystical theorizations into uncharted abstract territory. William Blake, who I consider him one of the greatest, um, I consider him a genius, but an enlightened genius. He says, you've always had the power right there in your shoes. You just had to learn it for yourself. He says, what is now proved was once only imagined. I'm just reading his quotes one by one. He says, love is weak when there is more doubt than there is trust. But love is most strong when you learn to trust even with all the doubts. If a thing loves, it is infinite. And guys, I'll be honest, William Blake was a person who felt that the observance of infinity was the presence of God. I'm not joking. I find that William Blake looked at the world in that sort of moment. William Blake, he says, I must create a system or be enslaved by another man's. I will not reason and compare. My business is to create. William Blake goes on to say, those who restrain their desires do so because theirs is weak enough to be restrained. And the last quote, or maybe two more quotes I'm going to read from William Blake. He says, the imagination is not a state. It is the human existence itself. This is so important because we neglect, we are ignorant of the value of the designs that visit our consciousness. You know, if you think you just create thoughts, you're going to not forget, but you're going to miss out on how thoughts are just like you're some sort of unique antenna. The brain is not here just to express, it is here to receive. The intelligence of our biological design, it comes two-handed. On one hand, it gives, on one hand, it receives. We receive data, we give data. You know, this has been the natural way. The last quote is, exuberance is beauty. And beauty is that is a path to enlightenment. You know, in Bhakti Yoga, the beauty of the vastness of grace is what leads the being into a clear state of being. Clarity is a sort of purification, as if in ancient alchemy, even though like a lot of people hear the word alchemist and they think of a guy turning like, I don't know, lead into gold or mercury into gold, some sort of, you know, alchemical craft. But at the same time, in ancient mystical alchemical cultures, they had this view that the whole point of alchemy was that it was a metaphor. You change lead into gold, just like how the cells in a caterpillar, when it's in a cocoon, all die, and then suddenly the cells of the butterfly emerge. the result of the stardust that we are being will be the result of, in some sense, another sort of self. That means if we consider memory to be also a recording in atomic structure, we can say that there is no way in truly comprehending matter, because the stardust could have an imprint of an influence on upon it, design wise, that in some sense makes it, how can I tell you, like, you cannot own your atoms. The atoms that you're being right now, you don't own them. The atoms are passing, they're travelers being you for a while. Yet these travelers being you, they at the same time hold certain abstract memory. The relationship of the mind and man is that the mind exists in its own world, the body exists in its own world. Rene Descartes caught on to this, and he said this is the mind's dualism. How there's a part of our being in another dimension, and how there's a part of our being in this dimension, you know? And so he was challenged in many ways, where this I forget which princess it was, but some princess at the time came up to Rene Descartes, and, like, he's a philosopher, like this old man, the bunch of, very mature and well-educated people just sitting, and this princess comes in and challenges Descartes and says, if the soul, if you say that the soul is in its own dimension, or like the mind is in its own dimension and the body is in this dimension, then why would the mind be in the body? Or in some sense, how could the, let me see, I feel like I almost hit the target there. She comes in, challenges him as if saying that you consider like this part of your intelligence in another dimension, but then he says, what's the purpose of that dimension to be an influence in this dimension? It's kind of like telling the angel, why are you worrying about like the gutters? And you kind of see that life lives for life. Death could never live. You transform yourself, like maybe not as cool as like the Transformers movie. Would you transform just like how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly? You transform from an objective, individual, existential creature, to a sort of collective, invisible presence that was the life of time. The cool thing is that in ancient cultures they saw time as a male figure, as a ruthless male kind of force, and they saw the earth as a sort of beauty, as a sort of feminine force. The ancient gods, the ancient god, its children were Father Time and Mother Earth, or Mother Nature. The children of Mother Nature and Father Time was the manifest and changing world. This changing world is changing in such a way that to have a belief is like holding on the edge of a door where you're being pulled by like a great wind to move beyond. Our beliefs are boxes that we lay upon the world. Something very unique is that the solar self and the animalistic self harmonize in the presence of a greater category. God was man's attempt to penetrate the unknown in a way he could know. The power of religion, why I feel it will remain very long on the surface of this planet, is because it was like a soldier defending the unknown, the value of it, through a certain story. For me, when I see religion, I see the value of books. I see how powerful ideas can be, that they can administer the behavior of beings who each have a unique DNA. You know, like whenever too many people believe the same thing, that's when the place is like, that's not a creative atmosphere. So too much agreement can be a sort of blindness, but too much disagreement can also be a blindness. So a mixture of moments of agreement and moments of disagreement begin kind of uh, uh, creating the vibrations or the oscillate, like they begin to generate character. The subjective self has a multidimensional being, sort of existence. That means you can have multiple ideas of yourself right now as I'm speaking. You can hear what I'm saying, these words that you're hearing. At the same time, your other senses could also, you could zoom into their data stream, their sensory data stream. That's a good way. See, guys, this is moments where we create concepts, that people have not attempted. Once you're aware of yourself and you recognize self, the shape of the world, and the awareness, the space that shape is in, is the moment's sort of texture. It's the moment's way. Every moment, every being right now, regardless of how confident or non-confident they think they are, is in a moment with unknown factors and known factors. And so if the known factors don't put an effort to advance, they will, in some sense, in the passage of time, be break like you know not well made statues. You're enlightened when you realize how light is being your existence, and yet there's an awareness to the light. And the awareness that has an awareness to the light also sees the shadow. The shadow cannot exist without the light. The order cannot exist without the chaos. And this is the ultimate confrontation behind your eyes that leads towards the ultimate freedom, as if you bring chaos internal and you let it go, which means you attain a sort of generosity to instantly dismiss mistakes, but to also be aware, to learn. The point of the past is to make us walk better. The past exists to give us style. I believe this. Pretty much light is being the consciousness that is accepting the idea of soul. The unknown is being the known. I don't know how to say this. When we understand this, civilization can have a multidimensional leap. And you have a multidimensional leap when a new dimension of activity occurs, a new dimension of, like, the people in that civilization, a group of them start paying attention to something they haven't paid attention before. And so the whole civilization begins to extend and it gets influenced by the collective exploration. I see when you look at ants, bees, like many other, like, tribes of insects, what you see is a sort of collective movement. When you look at birds in the sky moving in synchronistic ways, like a, I don't know what the term is, but like a, large group of birds. I don't think you say school of birds. I don't know. But anyways, like, these birds were all move. It's as if each individual reality begins to align towards a collective rhythm. As if there is a song being played called The Greatness of Humanity, and every person who's a part of the human species has to just hear it. And which means you must find the sort of ultimate affinity. You must not just feel that the world has forgiven you instantly, but you must, in that instant, also have also forgiven the world, because you don't want your attention to be fragmented. Your attention is fragmented when you feel the self is, when you feel like you don't know too much. What if you are the person the world is waiting for? Think like that. And also think in a way where, like, when I look at these people in the picture, I see a sort of inner peace. I see 5 people who have known each other to all be in the same. And so comes the task of true social work. You know, pure social work. Its philosophy should be oriented towards a commonality of liberation, a wave of commonality of liberation. Kind of, it is the utilization of human agreement. We all come into, like, as if all of us agree, like we all agree gravity. Like nobody has to, like, it's so easy to prove somebody of gravity, just get something from them, ask them to get something and drop it. You begin to see, like, it's a sort of, everybody acknowledges it. The planet is an idea again, everybody acknowledges it. We're all on a planet, we're all alive, everybody acknowledges it. So through certain concepts, we all have a collective presence. We all acknowledge we're sitting we're in the same room. So the task becomes how to first open the ears of 8 billion people, then to allow them to tell the new stories of the world. Because this is why, in some sense, leadership was seen as a sort of divine act, a divine quality. Current leadership that is blind, will be corrupt. But leadership that is alert, that leadership doesn't care for the result, cares for the handling of that moment. you tap into a sort of attributeless collective rhythm where your mind kind of begins to wear the uniform of universal responsibility, but it wears it in a way where it acknowledges that as if like these are glasses that are on the eyes of your pure awareness uh, of self, which is the world you see. So as I'm speaking right now, there's different ways I have experienced emptiness or how ideas exit the moment, my moment of awareness. And there are moments where I see how ideas enter, and I see how ideas are sort of like comets entering the atmosphere of my attention. They emerge, and as they emerge, they have emerged based on an intention. The idea goes far as the existential and inspired attention behind it. That means if I don't, for example, speak, if nobody starts talking about William Blake, he will be lost, as his wisdom will be lost in history. Now, when we look at the people we have saved, we have seen that it's as if there has been this great vision in the minds of men, but the animalistic wars, the era of the animal has not ended yet, and it will not end with technology, even though technology might end it. Nature uh, has a visible aspect, and the invisible aspect is in the visible. And what I mean by that is that your attention is dancing as space and the forms in that space. If you forget about local identities, usually, like they say this, it's hilarious, they say that some spiritual people, like some people who try to go and do meditation perfectly, like the greatest gurus, those people are comedians. Many people are laughing at them. You know why? Because the truth that you're seeking is here. If I asked you, where are you alive? Could the answer be anything other than now? You see the value of eyes gazing at existence to even do something about it. We gotta care for what has value. And I consider we're not just 8 billion objects and growing. We are 8 billion minds. And what a mind is a world generator. It is a subjective world generator. That means your knowledge is pretty much how in every moment your attention is opening dimensions of context to the same concept. Believe it or not, this is something unique, but maybe it'd be a good insider, something to share with people who are listening. Um, when I speak, my thoughts, they they have a geometrical dynamism to them. That means, like, how can I tell you? It's like, if I can say, like, we're in many rooms at the same time. Imagine I look at the room right now I'm in, and I see, like, the walls or the color and all that. But now imagine I look at my moment, and it all has a geometrical value. And it has a geometrical value that is not familiar. Strangely for me, it's like the way I see geometry. I see it in a way where it's alive. And I guess this is probably like it sounds as a bizarre statement, but geometry is the next great language of all languages. Is the next great language of all languages. It is how thought becomes a vessel for a subtler dimension of creation, which we yet for now, we don't know much about it. Pretty much, I'm saying like I'm seeing the edge of the forest, and I don't know what's at the edge, but I see the edge. And so, I mean, what I'm saying is that what I see the pattern is that we are made in the image of the universe. You know, we're all phenomena in the same space, pretty much. That's what I'm saying. Now, the value, the value this has is that the value for your individual activity is perceived in a cosmic context. So your personality, your archetypes evolve based on a sort of universal galactic responsibility. That means you're no longer just living for just your subjective realm. You realize the value of the beyond, and that is why we continue. You know, there's been many moments I've wanted to step out of this plane of existence, just navigate beyond it. There's been moments where this happened years ago where I was just sitting in a room. It was more of an inner experience than an outer experience. But I went to a point where I felt I reached this door in this cave, like in my mind. And when I reached this door in the cave, it was as if like the whole world and the vibrance of the world was in some sense as if in that moment I felt if I step out that door and I cease to exist, the way I had lived was enough. But when I reached the edge of that door, it's as if like at the edge of the world of my inner consciousness, my inner reality. Before I stepped into those pure lands, I couldn't. Do you see? Do you see that there are factors that keep us living for what we know will live beyond? That means our species must not get too distracted from the greatest thing that can motivate it, which is for it to continue. So I'm telling you, when you see the big picture and those around you don't see the big picture, you are automatically the leader. Not the leader, but you're automatically the communicator. Like you just, it's like somebody seeing a fire in the distance and shouting. You know, it's like you call that leadership. I don't know. But you know, it is a moment of a leadership. You know, as if important data is being shared properly. Yeah. One of the most profound experiences that I felt I kind of received from an intuitive meditation. When I say intuitive meditation, that means the meditation practice had entered the uncommon type. And what I mean is that my intuition was like this clear voice of knowing of how the world should move. So sometimes you feel you have free will, but trust me, your free will is just how your attention aligns with a better way the world is moving. It is a sort of tapping into the rhythms of a subtler dimension of life's momentum. By the way, guys, if you're listening to this, share your mind. because the light of the candle will eventually melt, will end. Our end makes us grateful for our start, but our start makes us realize the purpose of the end was to change. And so no man can tell the world how it's changing. I can't tell the sun, yo, son, don't, don't, like, I can't change our orbit, the orbit of our planet, but I can change my opinion on the substructure of this universal design. If I was like hanging out with these guys in the picture, in the wallpaper I've chosen, I would probably tell them this quote from Rumi where he says, "Let the water settle, and you will see the moon and the stars mirrored in your being." Don't seek future freedom. Live in a world that's already free. Remember how your awareness is being self and how your self is concluding your awareness. Give nature the space for its evolution. Give the minds of men a story that they want to see beyond. The past and the future will realize they're on the same wavelength, but the present moment is not. True clarity is beyond thought. Pure awareness is how thought is the mind's phenomena. Thank you for listening if you have. And if William Blake was here, I would ask him to end off this episode, and he would probably say these two quotes. The I altering alters all. We are here to learn, to endure the beams of love. We're here to learn to endure the beams of love. We are here to appreciate the magnificence of our existential and experiential attention and livelihood. The way we speak creates the inner reality of the moment. Words are like Lego pieces where you have to properly place. And we simply are here to learn to endure the beams of love. For in the beam of love, the inner and the outer realm bask in the grandeur of an ultimate witness. No man can command life, for it is all just service. Much blessings and namaste. I guess